From the School of Life Foundation, this is another episode of What You Given, a broadcast based on the invitation, find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. This becomes your gift. Everyone has something inside of themselves to give, and I want to know, what are you giving? In my interviews, we meet people from all walks of life. I am Jack Rolfe, and on the show today, we have Hilary Weeks. Hello, Hilary.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be on here with us. And really excited, looking forward to chatting with you a little bit here today. And I just wanted to throw something out to our listeners today. They hear me talk all the time about Ben and Kayla Martin, the producers of our show, and Kayla is my daughter. So of course, I think she's a wonderful girl, but that's the connection here. So Kayla had met you a few years back, and I thought maybe you could just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would love to. I have a friend who lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, well, at least the area. And that is where your daughter, Kayla, served her mission. And my friend and I got to talking about her potentially taking the missionary discussions. And Kayla and her companion ended up being the two sisters that taught my friend.
Yes, and they were so excited about that. And, it's just wonderful. Through that, they really got a sense of you, Hilary, that of just giving of yourself and giving to others. And we'll get more into that here into the show, but that's a lot about what we're trying to do. And we're trying to help other people recognize what they have to give to the world. And it doesn't matter who we are and where we're at and what we're doing, right? It's all different for each of us. But I in preparation for the show, I've listened to some podcasts that you've been on and read some things, and I've noticed kind of a theme in there that you would rather talk about other people than talk about yourself. Is that correct?
Oh, that is true. Plus, I'm really fascinated by the stories of other people, whether it's someone that I know or someone that I read about in history. I love, that's my favorite genre of book, is biographies or autobiographies. And I particularly love the stories that share a triumph, but somebody had to overcome something to get there. I just love hearing about the struggle and then the win. And so I'm fascinated by other people.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. On this podcast, we do a different podcast each week. And I really feel like I have a new personal coach every week because I'm meeting someone new and I'm learning more about them. And even if it's somebody I've known for a while, I still learn more about them on the podcast. And you're right, everybody has been triumphal with something and maybe multiple things. And those stories are fascinating. And, I love the participants on the show to be comfortable as we go through this. And so I'm going to do something a little different here. As I looked on your website, you mentioned on there that if you ever interacted with someone that's looking at your website, you would ask them for 3 words that describe themselves. And so I'm going to do that since we're meeting here today. And my 3 words, as I thought about that, would be child of God.
Oh, I love it.
And yeah, it just means so much to me. And but the beautiful thing is we're all children of God. And your music kind of helps with that. Can you tell us, as you're writing and singing your music, just about that connection with the divine being?
Sure. I don't know that I've ever really struggled to believe that I was a child of God. I think some of that is inherent in various personalities Some of us struggle to believe that, some of us don't, some of us are in between, and we just maybe come that way. But I think also our life experiences help us to help that to be easier to believe or not. Maybe it's harder to believe because of experiences that we've had. I grew up with very loving parents. So when I was taught that I'm a child of God and He's loving, that was easy to believe. But there are other people, lots of people, who don't come from families that were necessarily nurturing or loving or that built them up. And it makes it harder to believe in a Heavenly Father that's loving, or that He would love them. Maybe He loves somebody else who they see as being better or more worthy of His love. But I've always felt like He knew me and loved me. I didn't necessarily have a battle with that at any moment in my life. There have been times when I've needed to feel it more than others, or I've had to really reach out to be able to feel that at times.
Yes.
But I've always believed that He does. And so that's why I love writing music that's about Him. I always write with the hope that the songs will help people to feel God's love for them. And so that's why I've never been interested in maybe writing love songs or country music or anything like that, because this is where my heart is. The Savior is at the center of my life and everything I do. And so writing music about Him just seemed like the most natural thing to want to do.
That's beautiful. And I will share with you that I know, at least in my world, your music does that. Hilary, as I listen to your songs, and you've had many different songs and different tempos with your songs, but every time I listen to your music, the way I describe it, it takes me just to a personal place of peace. And one of the words I associate with God is peace. And if ever there was a time and a need in the world for peace, now is that time, right? And how would you describe that as far as relating peace with God and with your music?
How would I describe the concept of peace?
Yeah, and coming through in your music.
I've heard so many people say that music is one of the ways that they can feel peace or they can find answers. And depending on the type of music we listen to, it affects our mood, and vice versa. Depending on the type of mood we're in, affects the music that we choose. And I love that there's music for every backdrop that we need in life and for every mood that we might be in, or if we're in a place where we've been struggling and we need to feel close to our Heavenly Father and we're desperate for His peace, there's music out there that helps us take a step closer to Him and Him to us, so that we can feel. And I really believe that music can sometimes say the things that are in our heart that we don't have words for, that we struggle to express. And that can also be peace, sounds of peace, and feelings of peace. And I enjoy providing that type of music for people.
That you talk about music, and there is a real power in music, and it can go either way, right? It can go for good or not for good, but there is some wonderful music that does that. And I want to back up a minute too, when you're talking about people feeling God's love in their lives and recognizing that. That fits in with something that we talk about regularly on this podcast, and that I phrase it as your soul speaking to you. Our souls speak to us, and I believe that is divinely led. And the thing we talk about is our soul speaks to us to help us recognize what our gifts and our talents are. And because we all have them, and I believe they're blessings or gifts that have been given to us. And as we start to recognize and discover those gifts and talents, they begin to develop into a passion of us using them and developing them more. And as we do that, then we deliver those things, or at least I encourage everyone to deliver them, because that's what the gift is that you have, and your gift to the world. And so with that, I'm going to jump right into our theme phrase here: find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. I think that I would have a guess what that means in your life, and our listeners might, but I would like to hear it from you. Find what brings you joy and match it to the needs of the world. What does that mean in the life of Hilary Weeks?
Well, you're right. Like if somebody is familiar with my music, you would just make the assumption that that's something I'm passionate about.
Right.
And truth be told, I've thought about it many times. I'm like, am I passionate about
Yeah.
music?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a strong word. And when I think about things that I'm passionate about, that I would never want to give up or never quit doing because I just can't. I just love it so much. It would be more like my family and living the gospel of Jesus Christ. I don't want to live without those things. If I at some point had to give up songwriting, which inevitably at some point I probably will, and I'll have to give up performing as I get older, or maybe I'm not capable of performing or just whatever. That's like okay with me. I love music. I would say I love music. I don't know if I could go so far as to say I'm passionate about music, but the love of music has led me to want to share it. But really, I think I would say the love of Heavenly Father and that passion is what has led me to want to do music. And all the other ancillary things that I do on social media or on my website or things that have come out of the music, I just do those because of a greater love, which is of God. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
It does. And I'm really grateful that you described it that way. I'm going to go a little further with that. But before I do that, since you've brought up family, tell us a little bit about your family.
okay, that's fun. I've been married to my husband, Tim. We just celebrated our 30-year anniversary at the end of April. And he owns a company that does accounting for small and mid-sized companies. And then we have 4 daughters. The 3 oldest daughters are married, so we have 3 great sons-in-law. And our youngest daughter is in high school. And my favorite thing is just when we can be with the kids. And whether it's working in the yard or having a fun meal or playing a game, I love being with my family.
I can relate to that. We have 5 children, 14 grandchildren, and we love being with our family too. And so I'm going to shift back and dig a little bit deeper here with, so find what brings you joy. And you're sharing with us today, that's your family. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's your love for Heavenly Father. And so how are you taking those things that bring you joy and using it to meet a need in the world, helping the world?
Mm-hmm. Well, things that bring me joy, there is a big long list of things that fall under that umbrella.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
when you
right.
talk about like things I'm passionate about,
Yes.
that's a more limited list. But things that
Okay.
bring me joy, there's tons of
All
those.
right. We just opened it up then.
Yeah, yeah. So there, I mean, if we are talking about my gifts um and music, I mean, I feel so grateful that I've been able to share music with other people. And I think when I get stopped at Costco or a restaurant and somebody wants to talk about the music or a song in particular that helped them, the
Yes.
phrase that I hear the most, and it's sort of uncanny because I hear it so often, is that the music helped them in their darkest hour. um, that is a way that I feel like I can give back to the world. And ironically, I'm not even there when it happens. It's just that the music is carried to them in some way and it arrives in the moment they need it. I've heard some great stories about how somebody would they felt super sad, so they went for a drive and they turned on the radio and one of my songs came on and it helped them in their darkest hour. It helped them get through difficult things. And so it's almost as if I've been able to write and create and then send it out there into the world, and whatever God wants to do with it, he can do. And he can help the music get to people in the exact moment that they need it.
That's wonderful. So it's bringing more light um, into the world to take away some of that darkness. And that is interesting that that's how that's described. What a wonderful thing. And that's got to be rewarding to you as you using this gift, to hear that. I'd like to ask you a little bit more of, so this gift of music that you have, and you have, you've worked on that gift. I guess sometimes gifts come naturally, but there's a lot of hard work that goes into refining these gifts as well. And I believe for a lot of people, most people, we start to discover these gifts early in life. And I think that was true for you as well. Is that right?
Yeah, when I was 8 years old, I asked my mom if I could start taking piano lessons. So that's kind of a pretty normal age for people to want to learn, children to learn to play. And then wrote my first song when I was 14 years old. And I found that I loved writing music. I never really set out to, I never thought to myself, someday I am going to create a CD. Well, that far back, I would have had to say, someday I want to create a cassette because I've been doing it for long enough.
Yeah.
But it just evolved into that. And I think when we have a path that the Lord wants us to take, he helps guide us down that path. And I'm so happy that I've been able to produce music and sing and share music. But when it started out when I was young, it was just because I loved it. I loved to sing. And so I joined the choir and I grew up in Alaska. So when I was about, as in fifth and sixth grade, they had a school choir and I would walk early in the morning to school and in the snow. I mean, it sounds like one of those stories that parents tell. I walked
Yeah.
uphill both ways. I really did. I would walk in the morning in the snow. And of course, in Alaska, it's dark in the wintertime. So it felt like I was walking in the middle of the night, but it was so worth it because I loved singing. I have so many good memories of singing in the Christmas choir. It's the first time I heard the song Silver Bells. We sang that for our little Christmas concert at the elementary school choir. And so it just all developed from a love of music and just wanting to use talents and develop talents and let it go where it was supposed to go.
Hilary, as you described that, I actually hear a little bit of passion in there about the music, and I know it's there, and but you're humble with that. And you mentioned that first song at age 14, and if I have the story correct, I'd love to hear it more from you. That came as a result of attendance at an EFY event, and that song's no longer around. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I don't even know what came of it. I mean, we didn't have our cell phones back then, so
Yeah,
we couldn't really set our phone on the piano and press record so that we had the song. It was just, I don't even know if I even pulled out a cassette tape, on one of those machines and tried
right.
to record it. But I went to EFY and met a new friend there, and she sent me a poem about friendship after we went home. And I thought, oh, just try putting music to this poem. And I loved it. And it was super fun. And so I kept doing it.
That's wonderful. And I want to ask you too to describe a little bit, as we receive these impressions in life, and we're discovering more about our talents and skills. Sometimes it takes a little courage as well. move along that path and do the things that we feel drawn to. And in the School of Life Foundation, the curriculum that we use in schools that we work with is called Learn to School Your Toughest Opponent, which is ourselves.
Mm.
And so what have you learned, and what advice would you give to our listeners on how to school that toughest opponent? You know, that opponent tells us you're not good enough for that, or you're not this, or you're not that. How do you work through that, and what advice would you give?
Well, this is advice that I wish I would have given myself when I was 25 years old, because about that age, I was asked by Janice Cat Perry to sing one of her songs that had just come out on a new CD. And there was a big gathering of musicians in Salt Lake City at a Bravenel Hall who were also sharing music from their newest products
Yes.
and projects. And she asked me to represent hers. And that was before I had written, well, I'd written music, but that was before I had published or produced anything. And so I agreed to sing it for her. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And as the day got closer to the performance, I got more and more nervous. And I sang the song and it was good. I bet if I had a recording of it though, I would probably be able to see that I was really nervous. And after that experience, I began telling myself the wrong narrative, the wrong story. And I fed myself um, things like performing makes you so nervous. You're scared to perform. You might mess up when you sing. You might forget a lyric. And for 2 decades, I told myself that story, and I became I more and more nervous. Although I tried to fight against being nervous, but if I had changed the story in my head and what I was telling myself, I think it would have been so much easier to enjoy performing rather than being afraid of it. And last summer, I had a bit of a breakthrough as I thought back over those years and realized I'm just telling myself something that isn't true. I actually love to sing. I love to share these messages. I'm a good performer, and I started changing the story in my head, and performing since then has been so much more enjoyable, and I could have saved myself a lot of heartache. So I think I would say to somebody, be really careful about where you allow the thought train to go in your mind. And if it's going somewhere that it shouldn't, get off the train or change your thoughts and make sure you're telling yourself something true and something positive. And it would have been helpful for me just to even say to myself, okay, so performing makes you nervous. That's okay. You can overcome that. You're a good performer. Even if I was telling myself things that maybe I didn't necessarily know for certain at the time, I think I would have grown to know it sooner. And I would have saved myself a lot of heartache and pain and fear of performing rather than just being able to get on stage and enjoy it more.
That's excellent advice. I appreciate you sharing that story. I just want to add to those listening today too, that as you heard Hilary talk about her toughest opponent and how she overcame it, but she wished she would have beat that toughest opponent sooner. First of all, just recognize it's okay if your toughest opponent is beating you up, because it happens to all of us. And it's a natural thing to happen. But take the advice that we were just given and have the courage to work through that sooner. And
And like the realization,
yes,
because I didn't even realize I was doing it. And if someone had sat me down and been able to be inside my brain and know what was going on, and I think that was helpful too, just like a self-aware of what's happening and paired with the courage that you're talking about,
yeah.
that would have been so good.
So how do you think, how can we recognize that sooner, that
Well,
self-awareness?
honestly, I had to have somebody point it out to me and help me walk through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, and lots of I talked with my husband over the years and kids or other performers, and I'm not sure what that magical moment, why it happened then. I'm grateful that it happened when I was 51.
Right.
Finally,
Yeah.
it's never too late, right? To make a change and just to
Yes.
and now I'll catch myself in that mindset and just be like, "Oh, no, 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 that's not true." Switch it to positive thoughts and things that are gonna help you be able to be a good performer. But I don't know why it didn't click before then, but I did take somebody who was maybe more a little more insightful, or who understood how to help somebody work through that to help me do it.
I like to say, like you just said, it's never too late to make a change and to make a difference. And a lot of times as we make a change, we're even more able to make a difference. And I'm going to offer out there, one of the things we teach in the School of Life is to surround yourself with 5 positive people,
Mm.
or surround yourself with 5 people you think might have the most influence with you. And when you do that, I think what you just talked about, Hilary, might happen a little sooner, right? Because they'll give that influence or that positive stroke, or they might have a little more insight as to who we are, because we can't see it sometimes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so important to surround ourselves with cheerleaders and people who can encourage us and see the good and help us work through. It's great.
Yeah, it definitely is. And so this talent, this joy that you have of music, you're sharing it, and one of the needs in the world is bringing a little more light in the world. Um, have you noticed, Hilary, that we talk about sometimes on the show that as you use your own life to lift the lives of others, then your life just starts to automatically get lifted as well. Have you found that in your life?
Oh, absolutely. When we can use the gifts that we have and the talents that we have, it really does bring so much satisfaction.
Yeah, it really does. And I believe too that, we're always maybe reaching up, that somebody's helping to lift us, but we have an opportunity to reach out and maybe lift someone as well. But then what a beautiful thing that is, because it becomes a chain.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we all can be lifted together. It
Mhm.
becomes easier that way. And it just makes the world a better place too.
Yes.
So, you've done something interesting here, talking about your music, that you make your music available now, I think, through subscription. Is that right? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about that? There's kind of a change how music's listened to now, right?
Yeah, music is like totally consumed in a different way. That was a subscription that I offered in 2019 through 2021.
Okay.
And now it's available for anybody for free. It's on an app that's free to download, and it's called Live All In. And people can listen to the music that we created over those 3 years, and plus a few more songs. And there's some songs in Spanish and Portuguese on there that we did as well.
Oh, wow, that is wonderful. Um, what a great opportunity for people to have that. Are you recording new music all the time, Hilary? How's that look with you? Are you out performing a lot? What's the life of Hilary kind of like in that realm?
I would say mostly like everybody else's life. Doing the same things any other person would do, being a mom, taking care of my home. And then once in a while, I have the opportunity to go sing or speak somewhere. And recording is sort of a rare opportunity. So each time we create a project and a CD or an album, whatever you want to call it, that's when I get to record. So I've only done that 14 times over the last 25 years.
Yeah,
And I mean, 14 albums is a lot of albums, of course. I don't
right.
mean to say it that way, but more like I love the studio and it's so fun to be there. And so I almost wish I could be in the studio every week, but it's just not what we get to do. We create it and in the studio and then give it its wings and let it go out there into the world.
Yeah.
So music is, I get to perform now and then, and I love it, but it's really not what takes up the majority of my time. Some, I mean, music related things, but actual performing is just a little bit less often.
Got it. And so with that too, I'll throw out there, is there something new coming in your life?
Yeah, grandbaby. You
Yes.
were you were probably asking in terms of music, but
You know what?
um
I will take grandbaby because that's an awesome new thing coming.
yeah, it's really fun. We're really excited about that. And then one thing I've been excited about working on, and it's brought me I don't know, just a lot of joy, has been taking my lyrics, and we've had them made into designs that people can wear on t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies. And so we have about 9 different designs and of my lyrics, like "It's a good day to have a good day," or "Let your brave come through," or "Win the day." And that's been a really fun project to work on. So stuff like that is really enjoyable, and I love, because I feel like I'm still sending light and goodness out into
Right.
the world. And using the songs just in a totally different way.
That's wonderful. And when you said sharing your light again, one thing popped into my head right now. What would be your encouragement to individuals who listen today? Why do you feel it's important that they're sharing their light?
Well, at the beginning of the podcast, you said something about each of us having our own gifts. And
Yes.
when you said that, I was like, thank goodness. Can you imagine if all of ours were the same? Can you imagine if everybody sang? Nobody
Right.
would care about anybody else's, because you're like, well, I sing, so no big deal if you sing. And
Yes.
I'm so grateful for the variety, the endless variety of possibilities out there within people and what they have to offer the world. And thank goodness somebody invented the computer, and thank goodness somebody invented our cell phones and various recipes and foods. And the list could go on forever of things that people have used their gifts and talents to develop or create to make our lives better. And so if they hid their light, then the world would, like, figuratively and literally, be a darker place. We just wouldn't have all the wonderful things that we enjoy.
It does make the world a more beautiful place when more people are sharing their light. And I too want to encourage anyone listening today. We're hearing a little bit about Hilary's gift and the light she's sharing, but we want to know what your gift is, and we want to feel of your light. So please share it with the world, and we know that the world will be a better place as you do that. And Hilary, as we're getting to that time where we come to a close on the podcast, and it's always a sad time for me because I love the discussions, but it's a happy time too, because this is the point where I ask those that I'm interviewing the golden nugget question. And that question is, if there's one thing that you would want those listening today to learn or to take away from you, and it could be something we've talked about, something we haven't talked about, or an accumulation of those things, what would be that golden nugget, Hilary, that you'd like to leave with people?
This is an easy one to
Okay.
answer. This is something that I learned, that the Spirit whispered to me 25 years ago. And it's always stayed with me, and it's been something that we've taught our children, and it's become a family motto, and it's something that I live by that's blessed my life so much. And that is, don't worry about what others think of you. Worry about what they think of themselves when they're with you. And
Wow.
so if we're ever nervous in a group setting, even if we're nervous in a one-on-one setting, if we will focus on how we can lift the other person, the people that we're talking to or that we're associating with, rather than worrying about what they might think of our hair or our outfit or what we're saying, if we can focus on lifting them, it takes all of the pressure off us while simultaneously building them and helping them be able to accomplish their purpose and their mission and pursue their passions and the things that they love. So that's something that we'll say to our girls as they're walking out the door, don't worry about what you think of, and then they finish the sentence. So it's a really important way of living for us.
That is a great golden nugget and a wonderful spot to end today's show on. We thank you so, so much, Hilary, for sharing those things. And just reminder again for those listening today, your heart feels for you and your mind reasons for you, but your soul speaks to you. Are you listening? Did you listen today? If so, what did you hear? And what did you learn? Will you now have the courage to act upon what you felt? Thank you so much for tuning in. Please follow us on your podcast app so that each new episode is always downloaded, ready for you to listen in, and then share the link with others. We'd love to have you leave a review, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to send us a message, you can email us at whatchagiven@gmail.com. As always, a special thanks goes to our producers, Ben and Kayla Martin. Now it's time to move upward and onward and ask yourself, what you given?